Hello everybody. This is just a little tutorial on how to make some of your crumb blocks a little more interesting. So I've got a strip piece here, as you can see, and I have this one. I did a lot of corner pieces, you can see, but let's focus on this one here. So to make this a little more interesting, if I put my ruler down and I've got my line on my ruler lined up with this edge of this piece here, and I can make this block a little more interesting without affecting this one over here. So I'm going to just line that up and give it a trim. So there's an interesting piece, and I'm going to trim off a little bit of that right there. I spent the last couple nights, well, a couple days actually, and nights, sewing lots of pieces. But there's one interesting one. Now we have this one here. This is some scraps from using a Crazy Curves, Tuco, stay down, a Crazy Curves ruler for a cat quilt that I made. So see how that's kind of curved there? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my ruler on, try to get a somewhat straight line going across there, and that's going to give me another edge to make an interesting block. There we go. Here's another one. See how it's got a little curve here, this little piece. So kind of laying my ruler down, I think what I'm going to do is go all the way through to go. I'm sorry, my cat wants to be in the show. I want to keep this seam, you know, I don't want to go like this. If you can kind of see that. I don't want to go like that where you're ending on a seam like that. So I'm going to go ahead and just trim off all this whole little edge right here to give me a flat edge. And I have to turn this so I can cut because I'm right-handed. I'm going to do a little trim on the edge here because you can see that little piece sticking out there. When I'm cutting these apart, this is the time to just give a nice flat edge. There you go. Another interesting piece. And once this gets added in, as I'm building up these crumb blocks, you're adding a lot of interest. You've got different edges you can use when you're putting it down on a strip. There's that one. Okay, here's another one. Doesn't look real interesting, right? So I have this corner one, which I sewed it on the long end, which normally I do the side leg of a triangle, but just to add some interest, I did the lower part like that. So when we lay this, I'm going to move this over just a little bit right here. When we lay this down, because I know I'm going to be trimming off about 3/8 of an inch on this edge here, I can come over pretty far. So this one, it's a little crooked, if you can kind of see that a little bit, and I'm going to give it just a little bit. I'm going to go over just a little bit, like that. It's got a little bit of a skew to it. You can kind of see that. So if I were to put my ruler up, see how a little bit hangs over the edge there? Doing stuff like this really adds interest. It's really, even though it's small, it adds interest towards the final part of the block. Here's another one. See that little triangle here? When placing my ruler on here, it's not going to affect where I cut on this one over here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off this one first. About 3/8. Then I'm going to take this one, I'm going to lay my ruler at an angle. I might have to skew it just a little bit because I want a whole piece of fabric on that angle. So we have that one, but now on this one I'm going to go straight. So I have this edge to build off of. Eventually I'll have this edge over here. So I'm at the end of one of my strip pieces I was cutting apart here, and see there's a lot of material hanging off the end of this one. But what I can do is do a diagonal. Try to get right on the line, give it a trim. We're going to trim off this little piece there. Okay, we're going to trim off this other side right here, straight. See what an interesting piece that ends up being? Okay, here's another piece. It's very uneven. Just lay your ruler down. Get all the way through that seam down to the corner. Put this up just a little bit higher for you here. Hoping you can see this. And we're going to make a cut just like that. This will be a very interesting piece. Here's another one right here. So we have an angle going here, but we also have an angle. This is like you got two different. It's a little kitty wampus. This is how I deal with these. Is just lay your ruler down. Lay your ruler down to get a cut like that. I'm just going to trim off a little bit to get a nice straight edge. And then on this piece, again, we want to do the 3/8. Very interesting piece. Got this angle, you got this side, but you can build off of. So as I was doing these strips this time, I was kind of experimenting. Here is, just to show you, this one here on the left is how I normally will sew these triangles from doing binding. I normally do, you know, one of the legs of the triangle sewn on here, but I was kind of experimenting with what if you put it on the long way. The only problem with this is I'm finding I have a lot of scraps, which isn't a problem. These will be reusable because they're within that 5/8 of an inch or larger, but you end up with a lot of these versus you'd only end up with a small little strip when you trim this. Just to show you how much waste happens, let me get rid of that. So here's one that I had cut off already right there, and I'm getting ready to do this one. And remember, you got to do 3/8 of an inch off the edge of them corners, and then you end up with this. which I gotta go pull these threads out. It's just kind of a pain. So I would recommend, when you're doing the triangles, to do them like this red one here, on the other leg of the triangle. And don't do the long way because you end up with more waste.